Welcome everyone to our July, I can't believe it's July already, our July Acquisition Community of Interest member meeting. I'm really glad that y'all are here. We've got two really fun guests with us today. My name is Scott Simpson. I am the industry vice chair, co-vice chair with Ben Margolin, who wasn't able to be with us today. And my co-host today is going to be, I'm with CONIA Government Services. I specialize in the influx of AI and procurement. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Stephen.
Hey, Scott, thanks. Stephen Moyle here, part of the leadership team for the COI with Cobalt, VP of Growth, and glad to be here. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks very much. We've got some other members that weren't able to be with us today. We've got Andrea Argosarkon-Heller from GSA. She's the communications chair and just like an all-around great person to know if you've got anything to do with AI. Gisa Sateri from SAIC, who's on the line with us today. And Mike Scorney, who is probably off jet setting. Maybe he's even at the England game. Who knows? But he's from GSA. He's with the Assisted Acquisition Services Group. Let's go on to the next slide. Y'all know the Acquisition COI. We've got a lot of great stuff coming up this year. We're actually in the middle of planning for our year next year. So our 26-27 or our FY27 year, if you'd like. And so if you have ideas or if you'd like us to see, if you'd like to see us talk about certain topics, that would be wonderful. You can drop them in the chat. You can send us an email. And we do, all things acquisition. And for about the last year, we've spent a lot of time working on the one topic everyone seems to be talking about today, which is not the FIFA World Cup, but the Revolutionary Fire overhaul. And so we're really glad that you're here with us today for that. We've got two, like I said, we've got two really special guests with us today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves first. And first is Sandra Oliver Schmidt. Sandra is a really great friend and a director of the Procurement Innovation Lab. So Sandra, you want to introduce yourself? If you can get off mute. There we go.
I figured it out. Thank you.
You were
Thank
pulling
you so
a
much,
David
Scott.
there.
A Jablonski, yes. Thank you so much, Scott. Servant Scott was a former colleague of mine here at the Pill. I miss him dearly, but thank you so much for inviting me to have this conversation today. Yes, I'm the acting director of the Procurement Innovation Lab at DHS. Pill was stood up 11 years ago. And I have to tell you, the implementation and adoption of the Revolutionary Fire overhaul here at DHS is very exciting. My team has been leading efforts to take the testing and sharing framework that was already in place at DHS a step further. And it's been quite the banner year here at DHS. And I'm so pleased I could be here to share that with you all today. Thanks
very much for being with us. And Jimmy. Jimmy's another great friend. I think Jimmy and I worked together when I first joined procurement way back in 2009. We were both with NPPAD at the time, supporting NPPD. But Jimmy, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, you were my contracting officer in the second year of my internship program.
Right, yes.
I started with DHS in 2010 through the intern program as an 1102, not knowing what that career field was. But since then, I spent most of my time at DHS or all of my time. But I moved in 2016 to ICE, which is right around when the Pill began and became an acquisition innovation advocate there. So that was a lot of my connection to DHS, and Sandra's helped me a lot practically in and out. And then this last year, I've been on detail with GSA, the Practitioner Workstream, where the goal is to bring in and keep bringing in practitioners from across the government to get that perspective as we're nested among the Office of Government-Wide Policy there.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Jimmy.
Yeah.
We're going to start our questions today, put people on the hot seat. We're going to start with Sandra. I know she can take it. But Sandra, what are you seeing in the innovation space after the RFO is implemented? Because the RFO is just like this big, massive shift, right? And one of the things it does is really like push innovations. And you're at the Innovation Lab. So what are you seeing with innovations after the RFO?
I have to tell you, Scott, pleased to report the DHS acquisition workforce has been running circles around the RFO. They've been absolutely resilient this year, even in the face of 2 government shutdowns, which resulted in us being experienced a lapse in funding, I think almost the entirety of an entire quarter this year. To date, $57.5 billion have been obligated across DHS. Compare that $57.5 billion to $33 billion for all of last year in FY25. And $19 billion of that has only been since May. And we're looking at a 78% competition rate. Teams have been they've already experienced, they're familiar with a lot of the innovative procurement techniques that have been called out in the FAR Companion. And they have really leaned in and leaned forward into finding those new flexibilities, as evidenced by the dollars obligated as quickly as they have been this year. So I have to say a lot of things in the commercial side, Part 8, Part 16, federal supply schedules, they've really, really been leaning into those flexibilities. And I could go on all day, but I can share more if you'd like to hear stories or not, but I'll just leave it there for now.
Yeah, Part 8 and 16 had a lot of great flexibilities, especially around like the lower dollar threshold. So if you were under the SAP or like the Part 16 has this weird like threshold of like $6 million kind of thing. Is that where a lot of the innovations are taking space, or is it kind of all over?
I've seen most of them in the Part 8. Everyone's really leaning into the new flexibility of more easily awarding single award BPAs. There are fewer requirements now. The RFO has deleted many things. And in our workforce at DHS, that's what they've been asking. They've basically been asking what's been deleted because they know that there's flexibility there. So I've seen a lot more leaning into that. Even Part 16, with some of the ordering off the IDIQs, we've already seen teams use the opt-in approach for procurements valued. I think it's if they're valued above the SAT but below 7.5 million, opt-in is a lot faster than providing the solicitation to all companies. So hopefully vendors out there are paying attention to those opt-in postings and opt-in emails and opting in to receive the solicitation. We've also seen teams really lean into using that flexibility to issue a BPA against an IDIQ. And I have to say that is a just-in-time solution for a very large procurement at TSA called Gold Plus. It has been in the news. They have released a solicitation. It's an effort to further advance technology at the airports. And this solution is written into their solicitation to allow for the issuance of task orders or BPAs against this multiple or IDIQ that they're standing up. So really, also, I would say that another TSA team has gone so far as to take an existing innovation in the FAR Companion and streamlining things even further and testing it even further to great success with a recent IT procurement. Select best suited than negotiate. Why wait to negotiate better terms and conditions when you could also perhaps negotiate a performance work statement, or perhaps also negotiate other goals, other terms that weren't part of the original proposal process, saving a lot of time. So folks here have been getting really creative, and many have really leaned into the flexibility. Others have been anxiously watching their colleagues to see if it's okay to, how far are they willing to jump in the first time, but then they're willing to go further in the deep end the second time. And that is what's been continuously occurring all year and what we've been seeing here on the Hill.
You mentioned the shutdowns and how y'all are basically like missing a quarter of the year. How has that affected like the learning curve? And did the acquisition workforce have like extra questions when they come back that they needed to ask and get answered to like get them up to speed to bring them up to this point?
Yes, we really leaned into that as a PIL team this year. So our coaching engagements we've changed how we've coached. We offer more ad hoc coaching engagements because so many in the DHS acquisition workforce, they're already innovating, but many of them would like some help with procurement planning. They're looking for the quick knowledge of, hey, what are the flexibilities? Is there a FAR part I haven't been using that I should use now? So we've had to date over 23 formal engagements of ad hoc engagements with teams. We also very quickly put together a 90-minute workshop that we delivered to almost all 9, I think it was 7 of 9 of the contracting activities on the new flexibilities in federal supply schedules, Part 8, and Part 16 with the contract types and the new ordering guides. This was at their request. We must have pulled this together in 2 weeks, and we delivered it immediately, probably towards the end of the last lapse in funding through the third quarter. And we were able to reach all of those components, and they asked for that, and we were happy to meet that need. We also, in the beginning of the year, through our Pill Bites, Brief Insights on Printing Efficiencies, that's a quick 30-minute webinar training that we deliver. we offered some of the new flexibilities available, but by the end of the year, we pivoted to our PINs, our Procurement Innovation Neighborhoods. It's a 1-hour how-to community of interest training. By then we had the stories, and we were able to actually invite the users to come and share their story of their use and their experiences with the innovations and with the new flexibility. So we've been trying to hit it at both the micro and the macro levels in supporting these teams and just giving them that bolster that they needed, just the encouragement that they need to lean forward and lean in. And I have to say, we couldn't do it without the support of our Homeland Security Acquisition Institute. They've been really helpful in helping us understand adult learning. And also, we've been working together with them to help manage this tremendous change across the DHS acquisition workforce. And the workforce, like I said earlier, has been really resilient. It's been going really well.
Thanks, Sandra. Stephen, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, sure, and appreciate that level of detail, Sandra. Jimmy, over to you. So just to kind of get a little bit higher from the DHS conversation to broader, what are you seeing from other agencies in terms of just the RFO adoption? I know we kind of put Sandra on the spot, and she detailed a lot of DHS awesome work. What are you seeing from other agencies?
Yeah, I mean, I can confidently say that DHS always feels like they're on the front line, but I could be biased because I'm most familiar with what they're doing as well. I think one of my favorite parts of this RFO Practitioner Workstream that we're on is the exposure to so many different agencies. I think when you are in one little bubble, you never get to see, the same things are treated as like sacrosanct or crazy in your little bubble, and then you go outside it and learn so much more. And so it's been really cool to see that. I can say that it's not a uniform approach. I know if you've been around our group, you're going to keep hearing the messy middle terms. And it's been interesting. And I sometimes, it's one of the things I have to remind myself is like, our team is wrapped up in this stuff every day. And so it's becoming normal to me. And a lot more people than you expect are approaching this stuff sometimes for the first time from their day jobs still. So it's kind of wild just to see that as it happens, but it's a large workforce. And I think it was one of my favorite policy bosses who told me at some point early on that it takes about 7 communications before someone hears something. So if you imagine that on the federal workforce level, I try to remind myself of that to calm myself down when someone asks the same thing over and over. So it's just a lot of communication, a lot of empowerment. I think we view it from our team as a way to just communicate as quickly, as effectively, as pervasively as possible. But from like a practical standpoint, you can go right to acquisition.gov. In our trainings, we always point people to this within their agency to just specifically see by far part which agency has deviated and which has not yet. And if you actually go into the specific letters, you can see directions on how it's being implemented at that agency and what's changing. So if someone really wants to get into like practical details of literally what agency is doing at what point, you'll see that. And so a lot of the agencies are, the ones that have the bigger policy shops are moving a little quicker than we've ever seen. But there are some smaller agencies that are like, we'll just wait till the FAR is codified and figure it out then. I had an interesting conversation with someone at Import-Export today or this week, which I'd never spoken to somebody there. And she let me know that they don't have a small business office. That's the first time I had heard that. So it's dependent on the CEO to figure out those policies and just do it. And so I was like, oh, there's a lot that is interesting in just seeing how folks need resources, need support. But yeah, the class deviations are out there. We're doing our best to communicate it as often, as widely as possible. But as you know, there are so many people in the workforce, we have to reach widely. But as you can tell, I guess to end with this, it's a lot of familiar change. And even before this, as a coach with as an acquisition innovation advocate, we coached teams through at DHS and specifically at ICE most of my time on how to incorporate innovations. And it was always funny because people are like, well, like an innovative technique like oral presentations has been in the FAR since the 90s. So it's not like that it's innovative, it's that we're trying to get folks to do things. And I feel similarly with the RFO, it's not like, not everything might be brand new, but the fact that this is happening is innovative, and we're just trying to make people feel supported and less afraid and trying some new stuff, which is kind of, a difficult time to do this right now with the amount of change. But so a lot, I would say, is happening in the handling of adoption there.
Got it. And actually, my second question was kind of, I think you pretty much answered. It was a grapevine question around whether there was some RFO training for the acquisition workforce. And it sounds like the answer is beyond the grapevine question is yes. And then, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, please.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are several. The most official that is our life every week is we do a full day foundations course for the acquisition. That's open to anyone from the acquisition workforce, both contracting professionals and program managers, lawyers, policy. So that's where we meet most people every week. That's about it's about 150 registrants every week, and from across government. So that's where we kind of get a feel on the pulse of what is happening in live time and their concerns and their questions and what is happening. And it's funny because as we're training on topics, things are changing. So we're kind of saying that as well. But on top of that, we have a lot of less formal. We have a monthly wide, office hours. We just had one on Monday where we cover different topics that come up. And we often bring up topics that are brought to us from the workforce, because we also have an internal Far Forward Alliance forum where people can engage, and often we'll hear from a CO or a question, and we'll find things start to become more common, and we'll just pull that to an office hours. And there's about 1,500 people on this one this week. It's a large reach. And then we do have more informal, smaller groups that kind of excited about that we meet bi-weekly and try to invite the early adopters and try to have that grassroots approach from folks that really want a little extra or want to share resources. And we keep emphasizing the community around it all. So, and then on top of that, we're doing all this regular reach out to acquisition summits at agencies and trainings and talking to them whenever we can. Our email box is open. And so whenever people reach out, we try to respond as quickly as possible.
Awesome.
Jimmy,
And I think you touched, oh, go ahead, please, Sandra.
if I may, Jimmy, FAI also offers a monthly supervisors training
Oh, yeah.
related to RFO. I've thoroughly enjoyed that because it gets into some of the soft skills of organizational change management. And it's not unlike coaching. There's a lot of encouragement needed and a lot of grace needed and understanding that can be conveyed by top level and mid level leadership. And a lot of those things are discussed in that forum. And it's really appreciated by our workforce. And I thoroughly enjoy attending too.
Yeah, it's a cool thing with our work team is we meet weekly with FAI and the WarU training people to see how things are going and training wise, and also trying to empower local. So I know, again, shout out DHS, already have something going, great. Let's see how we can plug in and empower them in that, because a localized training will also be more beneficial to folks as much as possible too.
Awesome. And I know you touched on the innovation piece in your earlier answer, but most of the innovations you're talking through are the ones mentioned in the File Companion and the Practitioner's Album. You're kind of scattering it around the trainings.
Yes. So I think, yeah, innovation is definitely on a spectrum. I think there are things that are being, we're using the word innovation, and there are only a few things that are maybe truly new, which I feel like I need to make a list of, because people always like to stop you on the spot. They're like, nothing's new in the RFO, and I'm like, well, my favorite practical thing might be that I don't have to write a justification to include options, or there's little tiny wins that I'm like, okay, thank you, that I never thought this made sense. But then, because a lot of the bigger innovations are the things we have been pushing all along. It's just the fact that it's being formalized and it's in policy. And when you have sent things for review to your lawyers and to policy reviewers, they would be more nervous. So now that we can be like, look, part 16 now says this. So am I answering the question on innovation? Tell me again what you said.
Yeah, I think so. That's what Gisa raised her hand, but yes. Go ahead, Gisa.
Quick question, Jimmy. So with the monthly calls that you mentioned, are those, where are they like advertised that people, contract officers or program folks that want to register? How do they go about getting registered for those monthly calls?
Yeah, so it's open to the federal workforce. So that's sent out, and there are separate ones for depending on the supervisor versus non-supervisory. But it's sent out to, if the email lists are perfect, it's sent out to the acquisition workforce. So if you have a .gov email, you can attend.
So all we have to let people know, just to draw them to their attention to it, is to let them know, as long as they have a .gov email, they should be looking out for it, or go to a certain, like the FAI website and it's noted there, or.
It's on the website, and if I am assuming correctly, it's tied to federal employees when they are registered through like their profile through your acquisition certification. There's a listserv that send out acquisition news, and that's sent out widely. But then each agency does its own. I know, again, when I was at DHS, we did our own reach out to folks to provide resources. So hopefully they're getting it on different levels.
Awesome, thank you. And Scott and Stephen, a question in there from Jessica, just a little for Sandra to maybe elaborate a little bit on the adult learning.
Yeah, I was going to say, thanks so much for the question, Gisa, and keep those questions coming in the chat. We've got a couple already, and I was going to let Sandra answer the first one about what are some of the specifics that go into like an adult learning versus just learning.
What we learned from our partners, and we're so thankful to have the Homeland Security Acquisition Institute, is this adult learning that we're dealing with adults who have been working with the same regulations for most of their careers. You have some who are newer, but most of us, I've been at it 20 years, and having to unlearn and learn something new again, it's something like 4 or 5 times harder. So in the early fiscal year, we didn't have many stories. A lot of teams were wondering, where on earth do I start with this? They were just overwhelmed at beginning. And so we took HSAI's advice and we started helping teams crosswalk existing procurements or recently awarded procurements from how did you do this pre-RFO? Okay, and now based on new RFO changes and things we've seen in the pill, this is how you could do it now. Things like, you're trying to, I've helped teams do this. They wanted to award a BPA underneath one of the GWACs and they couldn't. So they went to a GSA Federal Supply Schedule model, but they didn't have maybe the best companies with the best capabilities. Well, now they actually could stick to that GWAC, issue a single award BPA against that GWAC, obtain the expertise and the experience and performance they're looking for. So a lot of our early fiscal year, their pill bites included a lot of crosswalks, as did our individual coaching engagements. And with our quick workshop we pulled together on part 8 and 16, a lot of crosswalking. The other thing we learned, we kind of looked at out in the commercial world, Dave Ramsey comes to mind. There are a lot of, he's a financial guru for those who don't know, but out in the commercial world, there's, when someone's selling a product, they're not just selling it in one place and in one way. Someone like a Dave Ramsey also has, he has his booklets, he has his podcasts, he has his workshops. Well, he also has these models where, anyone in a neighborhood, say a bunch of neighbors want to get together and discuss financial management, they can do that. He has a whole guide they can use. So we replicated that this year also intentionally to hit those other adult learners who like to learn in a group. And we've learned that a lot of those are the newer contract specialists who are just newer to the workforce, who maybe only worked under the old FAR for a couple of years. Now here they are under a new FAR. Their leadership is still actively learning too. Where do they go? They now have the RFO Rapid Learning Playbook to sit and actually learn these new topics on their own as a small team and as a small group, creating that safe space to say, I don't know the answer. Let's all go look at the FAR Companion together. Let's look at the new FAR together, the practitioner albums, DHS policy together. And they walk away from these 1 or 2 hour sessions feeling like they learned something. And maybe they are able to pass that forward, and not just in their work, but to their other colleagues, and then continue to hold sessions on their own. So those are a few actions we've taken specifically, which is the different type of adult learners in mind. And like I said, we're not experts in adult learning, but we appreciate our partners really helping us solve this riddle, so to speak, of how do we learn quickly and execute all these contract actions that we need to.
We also got a question from Brendan about whether you're seeing changes to contract writing systems as a result of the RFO, or if that's kind of not coming around yet.
Watch this space. We in the PIL are working on, we're supporting our entire office. Chief Procurement Officer office is conducting market research and is probably in the process of releasing a CSOP solicitation for procurement tools. The idea is to find innovative commercial technologies out there who can help with both this and other things in the procurement acquisition space that could reduce the administrative burden of the workforce. So I don't have an answer to that today, but I say watch this space and watch sam.gov for a potential announcement on that.
Thanks very much. And if people have more questions, keep dropping them in the chat. You mentioned earlier, Sandra, that you've got a lot of experiences coming out now. And that was one of the things that I was disappointed in, because I left in government in November, and it was really early in the RFO. And so we had a few that people had tried out, but not a whole lot yet. And so I was wondering if you could share one of your favorite kind of new RFO things that someone has done to meet mission, whether it was small or big, or just something that you had like as a favorite. Because I know that we're all about meeting mission and getting it done on time. And so was there something that someone did that was fun and responsive to RFO that like helped them meet the mission? But you're on mute though, Jablonski.
I don't think I muted myself, but that's okay. I'll let it go. I'll let it go, Scott. But I think my favorite was the TSA Talent team. Now they recently awarded, it was $125 million blanket purchase agreement, Part 8 federal supply schedule. It was 5.5 months. I know that we've supported teams who've awarded faster than that, but I want
That's
you to
still
know,
fast though. 128 million.
125 million.
Yeah.
There was a pre-award protest, and we learned that when an agency is under a lapse in funding, GAO does not process the protest. So the team kept moving forward. It was a 2-phase. They down selected from 22 to 6 companies. I appreciated that they had very thoughtful oral presentations that were only 2 hours tops with each company. So they were able to do 2 companies a day. That means in less than 5 days, they had completely evaluated, documented, and normalized their technical evaluation. But what I really liked that they did, they got really creative, because this is IT, it's IT engineering at that. They had a statement of objectives. They thought they were required to ask the vendors for a performance work statement in writing, and they thought they were required to evaluate that performance work statement from all vendors in writing. And they were familiar with select, best, soothe, and negotiate, but because the RFO explicitly promotes efficiencies and creativity, they put vendors on notice saying, look, we don't want a PWS from all of you, but when we determine the best suited vendor, we're going to negotiate a PWS with you. And that's exactly what they did. And if negotiations had fallen through, they could have gone to the next best suited vendor. I want you to know that the head of the contracting activity at TSA, she wants that taught to all of her cores, all the program offices. She wants to expand the use of this, because this could also be used for costs. This could also be used for other technical elements. I mean, this could go so far. I would love to see someone use it for just buying laptops. Hey, during Select, Best, Soothe, and Negotiate, how about we just negotiate a testing of a month of your laptop to see if it even works the way you say it will? There's so many possibilities here. So as simple as that one is, and it expands on a FAR companion innovation, I really appreciated the team's spirit and just trying to find those efficiencies. And keep in mind, any procurement over 125 million does require higher level secretary review here at DHS. So the 5.5 months with the 2 shutdowns, with the extra reviews, with the protest, I was very proud of this team and everything that they did. It just totally showed their resilience in that particular CO and really leaning forward into the spirit of the RFO.
Yeah, that's a really great benchmark, right? If you've got 5.5 months under like almost the worst conditions possible for a procurement, how fast are people going to go when they start to like really understand these and take advantage of these, say like in the 4th quarter now?
Right.
Hey, Jimmy.
Right.
Oh, sorry. How about you, Jimmy? Do you
Go
have
ahead,
a favorite RFO innovation or story that you've heard from a team?
That is a good question. I, of course, was thinking, I'm like, favorite is a strong word as I think about all the things that are happening. Um, um, yeah, some of the things that I agree with Sandra actually on when I was in operations, that being some of my personal favorites. I think what I maybe would land on now is I'm working with some GSA teams that are really trying, that are some of the first ones to um, do commercial construction, which is one of the biggest changes of RFO. And I never really worked with construction myself much, but it has been now. But it has been a huge shift, and it's been great talking to some of the construction people on how this works. Because, like we said, like people that have been doing this forever are really stuck in those lanes being different, which is funny because we've been training people to stay in their lanes, and now it's all of a sudden we've now merged them for this regard. And in my mind, since maybe I'm a little fresh to it, I'm like, yeah, it kind of is basically saying to do what you want at this point. Like pull in the clauses that you want, things that are commercial and industry practice. And I know that's uncomfortable, of course, for a lot of people. And then figuring out how to make it work. And construction, I think, feels like such a practical thing where you can actually make this better really kind of easily in a way. So I think that's been a good one. And as a part of that too, there's a lot of multiple award IDIQs. And one thing I really appreciate is that like on-off ramps are a normal thing. So ever since I found out or learned about those, I'm like, this should be in everything. Why is this not a normal thing? And a lot of stuff like that is just nice to see that it's like the norm now. That it's not like you have to inform or educate people about it. It's becoming a part of the contract now.
John Inman was one of the godfathers of procurement innovation, and he had this idea that you could put an on-ramp, off-ramp onto like a single award contract, which I thought was really pushing the boundaries, but we'll see. If anyone ever tries it, we'll reach out to John. Do you have, Sandra was asking, what are some of the key differences there when you're doing like construction as a commercial product or service versus just doing construction as construction?
Well, Scott, that is the question, and we're working on some.
You brought it up, Jimmy.
I know it's my own fault because there are some big changes. So we're working on some training. So I'm actually like fresh out of talking to some teams across government too, and learning all like the pain points and what would help them. One of the biggest things is like clause tailoring, but that's okay. I guess I'm saying this with hesitancy because the things that are supposed to be innovative are the things that right now are a little confusing to people. Like, how do we do, because payments commercially should be progress payments, but commercially makes that difficult. Like, that's a big one. So what do we, it's kind of about playing with policy a little bit, I feel like, playing with the clauses. This might be why I'm in an innovative spot. I'm like the person that if a rule doesn't make sense, it's hard for me to follow it. It's just a bad place to admit that. And so sometimes I tell people, which is one of the benefits of FAR Part 1, is like, to meet mission. And also I appreciate GAO cases for what is reasonable, to read things in that way. So I would say it comes to point in like payments, but I think also in performance monitoring is what I'm finding with folks is like, we're like really leaning into the, the outcome-based approaches to not just throw money at something and hope it works out, but how do we do this? And increasing our collaboration with industry, which is, I feel like I should be an answer to every question because that's all we talk about now, is really trying to push people to collaborate with the workforce and with industry. And so a lot of times it's asking, one team just told me like, oh yeah, we just asked them like, should this be commercial or, should be, and I'm like, great, that's really good. And so I think, again, it's causing less of a siloed effect, I guess, where they're not just, well, we hope. But I am seeing that. I think to make it commercial, you have to learn about what commercial construction is. And actually a lot of contract officers already know because the ones that are working on it are working with industry partners that are telling them what's off or what they would like to see so it's kind of like, I just feel like merging worlds in that sense. So fostering a better collaboration.
Very cool. Jimmy, to stay on you for just another second, there's a lot of flexibilities that were brought up into like the 8, 12, 16, especially in making awards fast using like what Sandra said, like notice of intent, but also with like just reviewing GSA schedules or reviewing a contract and saying like, hey, I provided everyone a fair opportunity by reviewing their contracts. Are you seeing folks either within GSA or across the government kind of take advantage of those as well?
Yes, we are. I must say, I feel like this is the one, this might be related to some recent complaints about RFIs being used as evaluation. Which I mean, I've seen some really good teams do this well. I think the times that I actually see teams experimenting with these things, it's often like the most competent, excited teams, and they are doing them well. So it's not, I don't see much like, oh, I'm gonna get industry with this one, or I'm gonna figure out a way. And so it has been the ones that I have seen are like the commercial engagement, use standing quotations, which I don't think I had heard much or even thought about as an option when I was coming up much. And some people are doing that for really reasonable things, like lab equipment at somewhere, and like we just need something that's small and we don't want to waste everybody's time and we know only these 3 companies can do it. I'm just going to pull this thing because it's still valid. Like that makes so much sense, and is easier for everybody involved. So there's things like that I'm seeing. And you said the notice of intent. What else did you say?
Oh, when you talked about it, reviewing schedules or like IDIQ contracts.
Yes. So the good thing is a lot of these schedules, and I've seen the GSA teams freshly too, are really taking the lead on a lot of making sure their IDIQs are ready to go with all those flexibilities, like putting a BPA under an IDIQ, and things like that. And so they're kind of they were kind of a pseudo epicenter before, and now it really feels like they're forced to be the epicenter. So those teams are moving quick. They're really making sure all their contracts have what they need to be so CEOs can take off. And so it is becoming more and more a resource that even we provide to folks in training. One of my more favorites is the Oasis Plus team already has a page on toolkits for BPAs under IDIQs. And even if you're not using Oasis, there's great resources there and some samples. And so a lot of those teams, I know NASA Soup is already ahead of the game there. And there's a lot of contracting teams that are on top of it for some of the major IDIQs, which then attracts folks looking for resources and if they have questions.
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy. Stephen, back to you.
Sure. Yeah, Sandra, and I know we're getting close at the end of time. Just for you, an innovation one, kind of forward-looking. Anything you can share about around DHS Chat, your AI model, and what's upcoming with it? Anything which would be a benefit for the group?
Yes. So for the audience here, DHS has one AI, I guess, product that we're all allowed to use. We call it DHS Chat. One thing that we are doing, we're partnering with our acquisition policy team and our legal and also CIO is expanding the use of DHS Chat for more of the procurement process. Right now, last summer we worked with our CIO office to create a DHS acquisitions prompt guide, and it has some prompt best practices that have been tested from the workforce, primarily for planning. But we have not ventured into the realm of source selection. And so that's why it requires very close collaboration with our policy partners and legal, but we are exploring it. There do seem to be some reasonable possibilities there, if done appropriately and done with the right guardrails. Plus the CFOP I mentioned earlier, just in trying to find more innovative technologies to help reduce this administrative burden in any phase in the procurement process is also been queued up here at DHS. And these are things that the PIL is taking the lead on working on. So more in this space to come.
Awesome. And I'll toss one quick to Jimmy. Have you heard of any other agencies kind of playing those type of AI tools? Anybody else?
Yes, AI is all the rage and being pushed for use. When I came to GSA, actually, they use Google products, so Gemini is built into the Workstream. So like you can use it to search your email to build slides, and it's more and more they're being asked to utilize it. And I know they're building future resources to navigate like acquisition training and changes that are all at this point going to be AI powered. And even today, there was a training on using AI at work. I know it's a very commonly requested training for the workforce as well.
Awesome. Okay, Gisa, you have one. I have a final one for Sandra, but Gisa, go ahead.
Go for it. Go for it, Stephen. I'll ask it after you.
Okay, just a kind of a big philosophical one for you, Sandra. What advice can you give to the industry kind of going into the fourth quarter? I know it's a big loaded one, but,
At DHS specifically, I don't know if everyone knows this, but we have 9 individual contracting activities across our components, and each component has a unique mission need. I would just be mindful about tailoring your approach based on the mission needs of that particular contracting activity. It may not be the same across DHS. But I would also highly encourage you to provide those thoughtful responses to RFIs, especially the RFIs using a digital application like Microsoft Forms or Google Forms, because typically teams who are using those have also gone to the trouble of asking really thoughtful questions that are driving their market research. Because remember, in Part 8 federal supply schedules, one can simply issue an RFQ directly to vendors now for both BPAs and task orders. And we've seen teams take advantage of that. I've also seen teams at USCIS grouping requirements into a single digital RFI. And that's supplementing their market research for multiple requirements, in which case they're going out and providing direct issuance RFQs in accordance with those new procedures in Part 8. So, and definitely be on the lookout for those opt-ins for those task orders against GWACs. Those are also becoming more popular, especially as we roll into the fourth quarter and teams are looking for quick wins and fast pass forward.
awesome. Thank you. Scott, back to you.
I'll let Gisa jump in and ask her question first, actually.
So quick follow-up to what Scott was asking in regards, faster time to awards. So you each gave a great example of 2 successful innovations, practices for different procurements. You don't have to name the agency or the people, but would love to hear from an industry perspective. We are seeing a lot where, the duration of the response seems to dictate the faster time to award versus the ask. The ask still seems to be pretty substantial, but the duration of the time has shrunk quite a bit. And quite honestly, not sure that necessarily means, right, innovative. So if you could just give an example of something that you've seen where you're like, okay, good try, but this could have been maybe shortened or maybe done via orals or maybe been a phased approach or something like that. But again, you don't have to name the agency, throw anybody under the bus.
Shall I go first on that one? Because I definitely have some stories. These are stories, I would say before the RFO, teams were testing this space already. And what we learned, and Scott was there for much of this learning, we learned that the procurement planning phase, that there are actually some more efficient processes that can be used in procurement planning to create more thoughtful evaluation criteria, to then create perhaps a more thoughtful procurement approach, like maybe a 2-hour oral presentation versus an 8-hour oral presentation, to also lead to a more thoughtful, how long does a vendor have to provide a response? And that's the use of jam sessions. But what we also learn in the PIL, we've been delivering PIL Bootcamp and PIL Bootcamp Next Level for a very long time now. What we've done recently is this year and behind the scenes, all of those innovations, jam sessions included, which are really highly productive 2-hour meetings, they're all now in asynchronous learning modules. So we've institutionalized those. But what we kept hearing in our surveys from those trainings, from the boot camps is, hey, I get back to my desk, I love everything I learned, I just don't know how to apply it and where to start. So next year in January, we are launching PIL Bootcamp Field Exercises, which are 2-hour workshops focused solely on application. And what we also learned is that a single innovation used by itself isn't enough. One needs to be able to connect the dots to the other relevant innovations and the FAR parts as a package to make it work And we're going to have 2-hour workshops across 4 topic areas to help teams do exactly this. And I can tell you that this very question you brought up, how to have, because what you have here is, oh, well, they want all these things, but they want in a short period of time. I would also ask, do they even need all those things? Did anyone think to ask that? Did they even have a meeting, a discussion to ask that? How would they even go about having that kind of meeting to ask that without people getting offended? Well, we're actually going to try to solve that with our boot camp field exercises in January. I will tell you right now, they will be launched DHS only in January. Like I said, 4 topic areas. So one can come back and attend 4 separate workshops. We have built them with ease and speed of delivery in mind. We only need 1 to 2 coaches to deliver them. But we've also delivered them with application and actually walking away with new knowledge in mind. And that's where our work with our HSA partners has been really handy. And if this were something that could eventually grow government-wide, that's great. We built it also with the idea of maybe other AIAs and other agencies could take on the curriculum and deliver it themselves and maybe slightly adapt it for their own workforce. So even how we build these things in these workshops, we build them with the scaling in mind for others, because there's no need for DHS to continue. I mean, we're happy to occupy this space, but there's so many other great things going on at other components and other agencies. We just want to be contributors to that and enablers to all of that. And I'm hoping and we think that these workshops will help solve that very question of right-sizing these procurements, what's being asked, how long it takes to submit a proposal.
Thank you for that, Sandra.
Thanks, Gisa. Jimmy, anything to add?
Yeah, in what I'm seeing and with folks, I think, like Sandra said, and since I came from working at DHS as well, I have always been, maybe this is why it fit, the training I did at the Procurement Innovation Lab was always the most practical training I think I ever had in the government. And so I was excited to just like always been passionate about, okay, let's make government work. And because this is exhausting. So most of it for me is like really few evaluation factors, oral presentations, on-the-spot consensus. We don't need to be doing all this. Like, what is going on? So many times, and then just reading what you are writing. I spend a lot of time in policy reviewing so many things, and usually even my advice to contract specialists, I'm like, just read it over once and you will fix most of the problems here. And I think that really speaks to, yeah, revisiting this, like having a jam session, having a conversation. And is this what we need? Like, does this work? Is this what we're doing? But that also speaks to a very, I realize, like optimistic reality. Speaking to short, I was at ICE last year, and so procurement was stressful. I'll say. So, and we had little control over some things, but I was, I guess, inspired to see some coworkers that even certain agreements that were not even with industry, but even with other like states or counties and contracting officers would be willing to simply ask the question, like, hey, what is this cost about? And they would randomly find ways to negotiate in ways I forgot it to even look. I just think the ease of asking, like, is this necessary? And then someone's like, oh no, you're right, that's not. And how easy, and a lot of our requirements are to just, stamp something along when just taking a look at it. So I think, yeah, having those conversations and incorporating those things. But yeah, I'm still amazed at how much effort it takes to still convince someone to do an oral presentation. Why do you need a 10-page document from someone? I always give like a personal experience of like, if you were to buy a car, do you want to get a brochure on it? Or would you like to go ask someone questions? I don't know why sometimes I'm like, why are we still explaining this? But for me, practically too, I think the most painful thing has just been reviews. And that's, I feel like, on the fringe of, I don't know how to innovate quite fully on that yet. But getting things reviewed and approved has been a personal pain of mine, of like, sometimes the delays are not always malintent, but things are taking too long. I can't send this back and forth to you 8 times. for every review. And I think that's my own personal journey request, is to see how we can innovate through that process.
Thanks, Jimmy. We're coming up on time, and so if you've got any last questions, go ahead and feel free to hit the raise your hand button or drop it in the chat. And while you're thinking about that, I'll ask Jimmy the last question about what's some advice that you would give folks, either on the government or the industry side, as they go into fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think of advice for industry. I've learned a lot from that. I don't know as much about the industry side. But the times that I've been able to meet with industry have honestly been some of the most informative, beneficial. Like, I'm like, oh, just spend an hour with one industry person to explain why this effect is on them. It's been really meaningful, I think. So I spend so much time, like, sometimes beating my head on a wall talking to contract specialists, that when I can't reach through to them, I often have talks with companies and industry on how they can kind of like back channel a little bit. Like, if you notice, like, help the workforce out. If you notice a problem in a solicitation, find a professional way to bring it up, like in a Q&A. But then some industries like, well, we don't want to give away our, so there's some strategic ways to maybe consider, how can you help the workforce? Often they're not doing stuff. They're often have a million things, and maybe something was just missed. And if you can somehow inject your way into the formal process, it's a great benefit. And I think we talked about engaging a little bit, perhaps at some point, but taking advantage of I think Sandra mentioned, of RFIs and things like that. The time you get to spend with them is really great. I think usually to the government people, I'm constantly reminding them to not be afraid to talk to people. It's really just the solicitation phase where you have to just be a little more mindful. Other than that, like, feel completely free. If you have a question, like, what would make sense to help? And then the community and collaboration is what I think I'm always pushing as well. Even spaces like this, find ways. It's not just like a wishy-washy thing to say to build community. If you have people to walk you through these things, it's really helpful to know you have a space to come to, that you have other people you can rely on. Even the innovation community I've made is kind of, what got me here today as well, and continues to help me. And then collaboration. I feel like I always leave people with remembering a Beyonce reference. I think a part of what makes her so great is the collaboration involved. People like to critique, oh, she didn't write all her own songs. But I think what makes it really beautiful and wonderful is that it is a very strong, targeted, strategic collaboration that happens. And whenever you're making a creative project, I think that's really important. And I think with industry, even without the government, you could probably collaborate among yourselves. So it's really kind of about breaking down, I think, those barriers and finding ways to set up consistent connections with people.
Thanks, Jimmy. Well, I don't see any questions and I don't see any hands. So I want to thank everybody for coming today. And I especially want to thank Sandra and Jimmy for taking the times out of their day to come and be with us. Stephen, do you have anything to wrap up with?
Nothing for me. I appreciate Sandra and Jimmy's time. Thanks, Scott.
Hey, quick question for me. Sandra, is the DHS PIL still offering training for other agencies? Is it all focused internally right now across DHS?
Right now it is focused internally, though our PILcasts, the direct links to our PILcasts, I think, are embedded in some of the practitioner albums on acquisition.gov, and that will continue. But we have our partners at FAI who we collaborate with before we even consider going gov-wide. Things are so new right now. So right now our trainings are internal to DHS. But I did want to add the field exercises. We do plan to offer a separate standalone version of that for industry, simply not just to inform industry of what we're teaching, but also kind of to expand on a session like this, things industry can do and things industry could keep an eye on regarding their relationship with contracting officers and specialists, requirements owners, just to give us some insight into some of the processes and practices we're trying to change here at DHS. So we think we might have an industry type of session next year is our plan.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Well, thank you to everyone for joining us today. Again, thank you to Sandra and to Jimmy. It was great to see you both. And hopefully I see some of you down in Orlando in a couple of weeks. And if not, we'll see you back here in August for our next member meeting. Gisa, anything to tease there?
Let's see. We have lots of things actually coming up in the next couple of months. So stay tuned to our newsletters that come out. And Nancy, what do we have coming up in August? I'm forgetting now. September we have AAS.
September. I don't think
Yeah, we have
August,
September
yeah.
16th, we have Corey Nickens and Derek Gurley from GSA AAS talking to us about the innovations, SIBRs and CSOs, as well as the flex model that they use within AAS. So make sure you register for that. I think Nancy has that site. If she doesn't have it up already, she will have it up shortly.
I'm back. We'll see you in September.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Have a great Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.